Greetings to all lovers of tales, myths, and legends. Ares is the most hated god not only among humans but also among the Olympians. Even Zeus himself despised him. If it weren't for Hera, the Thunderer would have sent him straight to Tartarus. So who is Ares, and why has he earned the contempt of the other gods? Today, let's try to figure it out. More videos on Greek mythology can be found on the channel. Goddess Hera is once again angry, and her husband Zeus is to blame. He fathered Athena, which was the last straw. Hera was tired of her husband's infidelities and the unusual births of children without her involvement, from either the thigh or the head. Hera set off to the distant shores of the ocean, where a magical flower grew that could overcome any infertility. When she arrived at the location, she leaned down to pluck this flower. But as soon as she touched it, a healthy and beautiful baby, Ares, appeared in its place. Thus, Hera, stubborn Hera, took revenge on her husband. She knew perfectly well the properties of the flower. Afterward, she brought the child to Olympus and raised him, despite Zeus' dissatisfaction. Young Ares saw many things on Olympus, but he was particularly fond of the power of warriors and the thrill of battle. The cult of Ares was not widely spread in ancient Greece, rather, he was revered in Thrace and called the Thracian Ares. According to Sophocles, he was born there. The Athenians, on the other hand, did not love war unless it was fought in defense of freedom or for another equally important reason, and they despised the Thracians as barbarians for whom war was a commonplace affair. It's no wonder that many writers like to contrast Athena, the goddess of strategic warfare, with Ares, the god of madness and frenzy in battle. Ares was also worshipped by professional mercenaries. They were not exactly fond of writing mythological stories in their spare time. Therefore, there aren't many myths involving Ares. In the end, we learn about the dreadful nature of Ares from Sophocles, who calls him despicable and urges the other Olympians to deal with him. Despite the universal hatred towards him, the god of war was quite attractive. He was depicted as a muscular middle-aged man with a fierce expression on his face. In one hand, Ares held a spear or a sword, in the other, a burning torch, and on his head, a warrior's helmet. His retinue consisted of a vulture, the harbinger of cruel battles, and dogs ready to tear apart anything that came into their sight. Next to Ares, one could often see Eris, a goddess of discord. She gives rise to famine, sorrows, battles, killings, disputes, strife, and lawlessness. It was at her instigation that the goddess's quarrel began, which became the cause of the Trojan War. In Ares' battles, there was another companion, Io, a goddess of furious warfare. She brought confusion to the battle and incited fury in the warriors, as well as being responsible for the destruction of cities. Ares is the god of war for the sake of war. The god of berserkers, intoxicated by battle. A god who doesn't care whose side he takes, as long as the war continues. Cruel battles are a delight to his heart. And his gaze is joyful as fallen warriors drop to the ground, one after another. Sometimes Ares, to entertain himself, would descend onto the battlefield on his horses, the children of one of the Erinyes and the god of the wind, Boreas. Their names were Blaze, Noise, Terror, and Splendor. Ares would rush among the warriors in his gleaming armor, indiscriminately cutting down soldiers and creating mountains of wounded bodies around him. No mortal could resist fierce Ares. In his fury, he would unleash a battle cry and rejoice, covered in blood. However, Ares did not always prevail. Athena defeated him twice in battle, utilizing her strategic skills. Neither his determination nor his resoluteness and fearlessness helped Ares achieve victory. His inability to compromise, bloodlust, and impulsiveness often let him down. At times, Ares would engage in battle simply for the sake of fighting, without considering the consequences of his actions. Once, he was captured by the sons of Aloeus, Attis, and Ephialtes. Interestingly, they fit the description of Ares' followers, boasting of their strength and displaying great courage. The god of war remained imprisoned in a bronze vessel for 13 months. Eventually, Hermes rescued the half-dead and disgraced Ares from captivity. Attis and Ephialtes were destined to be killed by Apollo's arrows. Ares also suffered at the hands of Heracles, not just once but multiple times. During the battle for Pylos, Heracles thrust his spear into Ares' thigh, causing him great pain, and Ares fled to Olympus. Apollo tended to Ares' wound for an hour. Afterward, the wounded god of war returned to the fight and battled until Heracles' arrow pierced his shoulder. Ares deemed it best to leave the battlefield. When Ares' son, Cycnus, challenged Heracles to a duel, Ares joined the fight in hopes of avenging his son. He received a wound to his thigh and fell to the ground. Heracles was ready to strike again, but Zeus intervened and separated the combatants. It is quite difficult to imagine Ares as a plaintiff in a court of law. He has entirely different ways of resolving problems. However, there was an occasion when he had to answer before the court of gods. Poseidon accused Ares of killing his son Halirrhothius. But the god of war pleaded for his defense, claiming that he was protecting the honor of his daughter Alcippe, who was assaulted by Poseidon's son. As there were no witnesses to the incident, Ares was acquitted. This was the first murder trial in history, and the hill where the trial took place became known as the Areopagus, a name that has survived to this day. Arguably, the most mentioned myth involving Ares is his love affair with Aphrodite, who was married to Hephaestus at the time. I have already discussed this story in detail in a video about the goddess of love, which you can find in the playlist on the channel. To summarize briefly, Aphrodite was unfaithful to Hephaestus with the god of war. But one day, the blacksmith god discovered their affair. In revenge, he devised a fine net that was invisible to the naked eye. He placed it on their marital bed and informed Aphrodite that he was going on a journey and would be away for several days. Of course, the lovers couldn't resist such an opportunity and fell into the trap, entangled in the net. Hephaestus summoned all the gods to witness his wife's infidelity, and they gleefully mocked the lovers. The outcome of this story was the banishment of Ares and Aphrodite from Olympus. Ares is also frequently mentioned in the myths of the Trojan cycle, where his role is portrayed unfavorably as he fights on the side of the Trojans against the blood-related gods. As for Ares' amorous nature, he could easily rival Zeus. The god of war bestowed his attention on many women, nymphs, and even Erinyes, but their names are usually mentioned in connection to the children they bore. For instance, Ares fathered the Thracian dragon with one of the Erinyes. The offspring born to mortal women were known for their wild and cruel disposition. King Diomedes of Thrace fed his mares with the flesh of lost travelers who strayed into his domain. King Oenomaus of Elis killed the suitors of his daughter Hippodamia, and King Phlegyas of one of the Greek tribes set fire to the temple of Apollo at Delphi. Overall, Ares' actions did not earn him favorable regard. He was disliked by everyone, except for his closest circle and Aphrodite. Zeus considered him the most detested of the immortals, so much so that he infuriated him. Ares was also not liked by humans, which is why there were few temples dedicated to him. Few depictions of this god have survived to the present day. He embodied savagery and rage, mindless and often blind, but at the same time, bestowing strength upon warriors to fight for their lives until the last drop of blood. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please remember to rate it. You can find other videos in the channel's playlist. Subscribe to the channel and leave comments if you have anything to say. That's all. Thank you for your attention, and see you in new videos.